Hello friends, welcome to AngularJS tutorial. In this video, we will touch base with two things, that is two-way binding and validations in AngularJS. So first of all, let's start with two-way binding. There are two types of bindings available, one-way binding and two-way binding. One-way binding is where whenever there is an update in model, that particular update is transmitted to the view and view is updated according to the model. In two-way binding, vice versa happens. Suppose a particular input is changed by user or a particular property is changed by end user who is using the view, then that particular change will be transmitted to the model and model will be updated according to the updated view. So two-way binding will keep view and model both in sync. This is the functionality which is available in AngularJS, which differentiate it from other scripting languages. So due to this functionality, we don't have to make sure that we are writing a code to catch the updated value from the view and then passing that into the model and updating the model. AngularJS will take care of this automatically. To achieve a two-way binding, we use directive ng model. Ng model is very useful directive and it will keep view and model in a sync. We can use the ng model directive on three types of tags, that is select, input and text area. We can apply ng model to this and whenever user updates any value into it, we can catch that and update our model according to that. So let's open our editor and see a short demo of it. Go to the Plunker. Let's launch the editor. Okay, here it is ready. As we have been doing, let me add the AngularJS reference to our HTML. Remove this part as we will not be using this. Let's first go to the script file and create module and controller. So we will be using a technique which will avoid the use of any global variable while creation of module and controller. So let's do this. Angular module, angular.module, let me give it a name as my app, no dependencies, keep the dot. Okay, let me do this in a new line. Dot controller, let's give it a name my controller. Then the second parameter is function which accepts the scope. Okay, so this is the way of creating a controller and a module where we avoid the existence of any global in a JavaScript. So let's define a scope and have a property called name. Let's put that property as ABC. Okay, let's go to our view in HTML, add a ng app, give it a name, my app. To the in body we will add a div tag. Let's assign a controller to this div. My controller. Do one thing, we will have a text box here where we can type the name. Type. Okay, and then we'll use the ng model with this input. Let me assign a variable as a name. Close this. Close. Okay, and let me try to fetch that particular variable after this text box. Let us go to the view window or output window. Here it is, we are seeing the text box. Here you can see this. Whenever I type something into this text box, it is getting binded to this view. This ng model is binding that data to the name variable, and that name variable is getting updated as soon as I type into it. With every keystroke it is getting updated. So this is the two-way binding where any change in a view is shown onto the model part. So this is the small demo which is enough to show that AngularJS supports the two-way binding. Okay, let's now move on to the second part which we want to cover is validations. Validations, as most of the web developers will be aware of, is a part where we restrict the user from entering any data as an input. Suppose user is trying to enter incorrect data into the input element, then we can have a validation and restrict that input or a wrong input from the user. So there are 4 types of validations which we will be covering up in this video. These are the basic validations, but you can build up your own validations, or you can use remaining validations by understanding of these basic 4 validations. So first is a required validator. So required validator, as name suggests, will make that particular field or particular text box as required. Suppose user doesn't enter anything into that or keep that blank, then we'll show up the validation. Second thing is ng pattern. Here we will give the regex, or will give the patterns, and AngularJS will make sure that data which is inserted into that input or text area will match this pattern. If it doesn't, it will throw the validation or trigger the validation. Then there are form properties. In this we will see what are the form properties which are important, and how we can play with those. The last thing is CSS classes. In this we will see how AngularJS assigns a different CSS classes depending on the action or validation of the form. So let's go into the demo of validations. Let me remove this part. Okay, let us keep the controller as it is. Just remove this part. I've deleted it. Okay, so let us create a form with name, my okay. Inside this, let's create the label name, and then we'll assign input type equal to text. Let me close this input tag. Next is, suppose I want the email of a user, then oh, I will have another text box which will catch this up text. Let us assign the ng model directives to this, and as it is the employee's email, let's give it a ng model emp.employee. Let me maximize the typing window, and then slash input. Here also we will assign ng model attribute. Let's give it a property name as emp.name. Let's put a br tag in it. As we are concentrating on AngularJS, we will not be concentrating on HTML and CSS part and the formatting of it. Let me create a button type equal to submit, and let's give it as a submit. Okay, let's refresh and see if this particular UI is getting populated. Okay, so let us put a br in. Okay, so we will be having a ng click directive on this, and let's call a save. So in this save we will pass emp object, and let us pass on our form also, my form. Okay, so now we will go into the controller and we'll implement a save method. So save is save capital S. Then let's have a function for it which accepts emp and my form. Let me check if I put it the correct way with all steps. Yes. So in this function, to just give you the demo, like they will put an alert saying hi emp dot name is saved. Let's put a plus here, plus here. Okay, let's refresh and check if this save function is working. I put abc here, email as csa, click on save. So hi, the name abc is saved. So this particular click is working and our data is getting saved. So here in this particular form, suppose a user enters a blank name and clicks, then also we are making the form submit. So to avoid this and to make this particular field as compulsory, we will put a validator required. Same with email. And now let's refresh this output window and check if this validator works. Suppose I kept name as a blank, email as anything, click on submit. Still it is allowing. I think here it goes. Here it shows please fill out this field. But strange behavior is it first gives the pop-up and then throws the error. Why is this happening? Because in our controller we are not checking for form validation. So to check that, let's go have my form dot dollar is valid. So if everything is valid, then only play this alert message. Okay, so let's try again and click here. Here it goes. Now this my form is valid property is getting checked, and as this form is invalid, so we are not going in and popping up the alert message. So this is the required field and how to do a whole form validation. Okay, so let's go for the second type of validation which we used or which we have explained is ng pattern. Here email, we can enter anything in the email and we can click on save. It doesn't throw any error. I want that email to be of a particular pattern or a valid email. If that is a particular pattern valid email, then only we will allow the forms to be saved. So currently suppose I write anything in email field and click on save, it is getting submitted. So to make this particular email pattern or to check the email field is valid, we will have to use the ng pattern and provide the particular valid pattern of an email. So here I have used another property in a controller, that is pattern, and given a valid email pattern which should be used. Now let's go into the HTML, and in HTML let's put ng pattern and give it a property name which we have defined in our controller. Now let's refresh this and check. Suppose I give it a name as anything, mail as anything, try to click submit, nothing is happening. Let me change the pattern or format of the email and try to put a proper email format. Let's click submit. Here it is. Hi, that particular name is saved. But have you noticed one issue here? Suppose I have written or I have inserted a wrong email pattern and I click on submit, nothing is happening and user is not getting any message or any intimation that particular field or particular form is invalid. To avoid this or to make it more clearer, we will use the ng disabled directive which we have used, and we'll pass the form name dot invalid. So this will make sure that unless and until form is valid, the submit button will be disabled. Let's refresh the UI and check if this is working. Here at the start submit button is disabled. I suppose enter a particular text, then enter, and here it is. After the creation of, or after giving a proper format into the email, then the submit button is enabled and I can click on this and my data will be sent. So in this way we can have a form valid and form invalid properties of a form used to get the validations or to work on the validations. So next thing is the form's properties. So to get the form properties, let us use the console dot log and let's log the my form to see what are the properties of a form and which out of those which are useful to us. Let's refresh it. Put something in a name, a valid mail ID. Let's open a console window. Now let's click on a submit and that form is submitted. Now here in this console window we are the properties of the form. Go through this. There are 4 major properties which are useful for us. First is a invalid, as this form is a valid, this is false. Then the property dirty. Dirty property is where we have updated something in a form. At that time this property will be set to a true. So as we have entered a name or updated a name field and email field, this dirty property is set to true. The third property which is important is pristine property. So this is the exact opposite of dirty. As we have updated the form, this is set to false. If the form is not updated or any field of the form is not updated, this value will be set to true. The last property is a valid property. So there are 4 major properties: valid, invalid, dirty and pristine, which are important and which will be useful for us. Okay, so this is it for this smaller session which covered 2 things of the AngularJS. First one was two-way bindings, how two-way bindings works. Then the second topic we covered is the validations. So in validations we have seen how to make the field compulsory, then how to implement the pattern, how to use the different form properties like valid, invalid for our purpose to get the desired output, and how to pass on the form to the controller and how to get the form's details. So this is it for this session. Thanks for your time.